Welcome back guys, and in this video we are going to be going over the two major updates from Figma Config, which is for Autolayout and component features specifically. There are many more updates regarding typography and the dark gray mode look for the Figma, but these two for me have been the most influential, and especially the component part I want to do justice because I know it's the most complex one. So how this tutorial will go is we are first going to go over the component part and I will show you what changed, and then we are gonna come back to this screen to the right and we are gonna use our knowledge from the components and auto layout to make it look better, like the left side, and we are going to see how updated features on the Figma place for designing. Let's cut this short and let's get started. We have to understand why Figma made this new update for the components, and to understand it we have to understand what Figma Variants were and what was their shortcut. Now Figma Variants lets us do a lot of the things great. Here you see a Figma Variant component and I'm just gonna fetch an instance of it. Basically what a Figma Variant component lets you do is scale your designs. You can have 50 different buttons across your design, and if you make changes to the parent component, all of your changes will cascade to its children. In addition, because you have different variants, you can also be much more flexible. 25 of your buttons might be red, the other 25 can be black. Now, where Figma Variants fell short was for elements like buttons or other simple UI elements. You might have very different variants of that particular button, such as one having an icon to its left or the icon to its right with different content text, like one can be a submit button, the other can be play button, and all of these might have the same design. So you would have to create different variants of each of these, and trust me, at production level you might have 10, 20, 30 different versions. So what Figma did for the components is they gave a new update where you can add to a component without making it a variant 3 different properties, so that you can ease your workflow a bit, and without using variants you can create different types of buttons or other simple UI elements very easily. So let's get another instance of this variant that we have, and I'm gonna detach it so we can make this a new property, and I'm gonna name this updated comp. Okay, so the first change we are gonna make is about the content. So right now I have my button and inside of it is the label button with lots of N. So I'm gonna double click to select the text elements, and now on Figma, with the thanks to the Figma Config update, you can see this content option. What this means is this is basically creating an automatic property, and I'm gonna name this label, and I'm gonna create this value. What the value suggests is anytime when we will create an instance of this button, which you shall see, like if I press option and I create the instance, I can now change its text value based on here. See, button, etc. This helps me scale my buttons very well, especially if the content, the labels of it will change from sign up to play to login, which makes it much more easy for me because I don't need to create as many variations. That's the first type change, and I'm gonna delete this instance. Now another thing we can do, and I'm just gonna add an auto layout here, is like 8, 12. Second thing we can do is we have to first add an element, and I'm gonna add like an icon here, download icon, and that's good, maybe 4 pixels difference, and I'm gonna make the icon have the color white. Another thing you can do is you can make certain elements appear or disappear, and less for us, we can do this icon, and what we can do here is we can go to the layer property, and I'm gonna press this apply boolean property, and what boolean property does is it lets us show or hide the element. So I'm just gonna do show icon, show left icon, and I'm gonna create this. What this does is I'm gonna create an instance of this now, drag it. If I make this false, the icon will disappear. And you can understand how useful this would be for different types of buttons, or like status bars where you could get the X's or other icons to be hidden or not in some certain cases, other UI elements like maybe sliders, you want to hide stuff or you want to show stuff. That is the second function. The third function is just for icons. What you can do is you can actually click on the icon again and you can pick different icons. So what I can now do is I can pick dollar icon and others, but I wanna create this apply instance swap property. What this property does is it lets me swap that particular element that I clicked on with its different what would you say, different variations. This variation, I mean, like if you have an icon, you can swap it with different icons on your icon set. So for example, we can do this left icon pick, and what will happen is if I create a new child, I can pick different icons here. For my icon set, I only have 2, and sometimes this bugs out and the colors aren't updated, but yeah, so it lets me pick different colors, it lets me pick different icons depending on the amount of icons I have. If I had 50, I could pick from different 50 versions. And those are the 3 properties, guys. The content property to actually change the content, the text of the particular component. The swap instance property to change the icons that you have. And the third one is to hide or show property, the Boolean property to show or hide certain elements within a component. Right, now that we saw how the components are used, I am going to create the component button that we have on the screen. So I am just gonna press F, and what I'm going to do is I am gonna make this fill, and I'm gonna make it fill with the color of this, and I'm gonna press T for text, and I'm gonna say pay. I'm gonna get it here, I'm gonna bold this out, and I'm gonna get this to be centered, and I want to add auto layout here as well, maybe 112, maybe 14, that's good. And I want to add some icons. Let's add some icons here, boom, and I want this icon to be white, and I'm gonna check the auto layout here. It should be centered like this, yeah, maybe even like 16 pixels, no, 14 is good. And what's the item distance? Maybe 4. Okay, 4 is good. And maybe change this to make payment, and that is 324. We want roughly 326. Yeah, that's good. Okay, and I'm gonna give this 8. Fantastic. Now what I'm going to do is I am gonna add our properties like the text content property. So I'm gonna make this a component first, Command Option K, and I'm gonna double click to select the text, and I'm gonna make this go label. Perfect. Then I'm gonna click this one. Now that I chose the icon, I am gonna add the Boolean property first, show, let's say icon, and then I am gonna add the instance of icon type. Okay. Then what I'm gonna do is I am gonna get this component in here, and I have to change this to $. Perfect, and that is there, and I'm gonna get this to 24. Now that we have added all those 3 properties, this button is much easier to style. We can do stuff like this, etc. Now the other things I want to show you are for the auto layout changes. So one of the good auto layout changes that Figma Config brought was negative spacing. So if I zoom here, you can see all of these sub images, like there are 4 small circle images, and before basically before negative spacing was introduced, let's get to 0, what you would have to do would be to actually move elements behind on your own, and you couldn't do this with Autolayout. But now you can actually do this with relative ease, where they are stacked just about 50% on top of each other, and 16 pixels, that looks good. And another thing you can do is you can pick the order, so you can do first on top, last on top, we switch. And this also lets you customize very easily of what is on top, what is under. And that is the first thing that the Autolayout feature has brought. Other things are much more easier to adjust the spacing. So here, if you check here out, I have basically rows section, and I can actually increase or decrease the spacing by now on the screen instead of just relying on this panel to the right. So if I actually, let me be on this text, and I check the element that has auto layout, these red circles, I can increase or decrease to adjust this element spacing, which is fantastic. And if I want to basically write it on there, I can double click and I can also pick from here. And this is very good, and I can give it like spacing here, etc., etc. And that is very good so far. On screen padding, spacing, adjustment on auto layout is a very good thing, because otherwise you have to just look at the right side, look to the left if it's what you want or not. It's a bit harder. This made it a lot easier. Now another thing I want to talk about is absolute positioning. So what I want to now do is I want to basically the ability to, let's say, cancel this out, and which would be impossible in a checkout screen. You would probably want to go back, but for this case I'm just going to press O and I'm going to add this. Now because this frame already is an auto layout horizontal, it's adding the circle to its right because it's the last element. But thanks to Figma Config update, I can actually make this circle be an absolute position like HTML and CSS, where it's independent from the frame but still in the frame. And I can give this the color of this, and maybe the icon of, do we have a star? We do have a star. I'm gonna just get the star. Why? I don't know why. Okay, I have to get this, both of these to be in the group. And I have to select that star, get it here, and basically make this white, and make sure the star is on top of the ellipse. Perfect. That's our star. That's great. And now you can see, while we are still on auto layout, because it's absolutely positioned, it can be moved independently around the frame, and that's fantastic. That works very well. And our spacings are done, and again some of the things have changed, like the placement of both of these elements here have changed. You can do a lot more on the auto layout. You can make sure if the strokes are excluded or included. If you have a stroke on your element, they are excluded or included in when we are calculating its width and height. Those are added, and a lot of the things are for the auto layout, I believe, are nice. And you already seen our basically how to do the components as well. And these are the two major changes that I like, and I wished I had seen much more in depth in the tutorials. There are other changes like Figma dark mode or typography, but I believe these two are the fundamental changes. And I hope you enjoyed this video today, guys. And if you haven't already, please smash that subscribe button below so that you can stay in touch with me as I produce more videos about Figma or UI UX design, so that you can become a better UI UX designer. And take care. Now before you go any further, I actually added 2 videos to the end of this video that I believe will help make you a better UI UX designer on Figma. Please watch either of them if you haven't already. I believe they will improve your design skills a lot.